President Biden just concluding his press conference. This is the 75th anniversary of NATO. President Biden's first press conference since the debate. I thought he did an incredible job, showed a great deal of command on the issues when it came to foreign policy. I mean, we're talking about real intricate discussion on foreign relations, to the various questions that were being asked. And as he was being pressed, there was also some moments too where we saw some incredible passion being shown by President Biden when he talked about gun violence in the United States of America and the fact that Donald Trump brags about doing nothing and helping the NRA and helping the proliferation of military-style weapons used in school shootings. When President Biden talked about women's reproductive freedoms being taken away, when President Biden talked about Donald Trump wanting to be a dictator, when President Biden was questioned about his mental acuity and his cognitive abilities, President Biden was like, look at my schedule and look at Donald Trump's schedule. Look at the things that I do every day. And what does Donald Trump do? He sits in his golf cart all day and he checks his scores and he just kind of sits there like that. Is that what you're referring to? When President Biden was challenged about gaffes that he made, he goes, just look at what Donald Trump says. Listen to what he says. And President Biden answered question after question, multi-part questions. Why don't we just show a little recap of what went down? And then why don't we all talk about it? Let me just call in Brett and Jordy so you can see their faces and know that they're here as well. Let's do a quick recap of some of the key moments, I thought, of this press conference. And then let's just talk about this current moment, and let's talk about where we go from here. First off, we had President Biden when he was asked about, well, what do you think about your legacy? You. He's like, this isn't about me. I'm here to complete a job. Watch this.
I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plans so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory, that if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My dad was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, mainstream economist, that said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the job.
President Biden was then asked about the concerns from our allies that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, as Donald Trump said that he would consider pulling America out of NATO and disbanding NATO. Let's play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern. Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And
Yeah, he answered it directly. That's what Donald Trump wants to do. President Biden was then asked about his schedule and if he feels he's able to keep a schedule. Here, play this clip.
I think
Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
the limits I've acknowledged I have.
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
Then President Biden talks about the standing of the United States leading NATO. Let's play this clip.
Ask you about your, you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. Officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, here, I mean, Putin. I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I don't know if it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was.
President Biden then talks about what Donald Trump's been saying at his rallies, where Donald Trump said that he only recently learned upon becoming president what NATO was, and he never knew what NATO was before then. Here, play this clip.
I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. It'd be a disaster. It'd be a disaster. I mean, I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian.
President Biden then gets fired up talking about gun violence and raises his voice for the first time during the presser. This was an important moment right here. Let's watch it.
There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea, we're sitting around, this is where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around. More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? We got a candidate saying, promise the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. You got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous. There's so much we can do still. And I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. And
then President Biden talks about our democracy being under siege. Let's play this clip.
Do you think our democracy is under siege based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025? Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education, make sure, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why you say hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. Because there's so much at stake.
Then finally, he was asked about a portion of his press conference where he misspoke and referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump for a second. And then the questioner said, well, Trump's using that to mock you right now. How do you respond to that? Here's what President Biden said.
This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference.
Listen to him. And so this is what Donald Trump posted moments ago. Let's pull up the post from Donald Trump's social media. Crooked Joe begins his, quote, big boy press conference with, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, though I think she was not qualified to be president. Great job, Joe. And President Biden responds, by the way, yes, I know the difference. One's a prosecutor and the other is a felon. It's a great response right there. I want to speak more about that press conference, but I do want to show this is a video that we created at MeidasTouch as well. This goes to what President Biden was saying at the end. Listen to his words. So this was a speech that President Biden gave on July 9th about NATO. Donald Trump gave a speech at his property at Doral, Miami. And take a look at the difference between these two speeches and tell me which one do you think, which person here do you think the media is telling that they need to step down? Let's watch this.
In 1949, leaders of 12 countries, including President Truman, came together in this very room and created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much before, but it didn't take me long to figure it out, like about 2 minutes.
Today, NATO is stronger than it's ever been in its history. 32 nations strong.
28 countries. 28 countries. Think of that.
We know Putin won't stop at Ukraine, but make no mistake, Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
You know, Ukraine, when you think Ukraine, I had a very good relationship with Putin. We talked about it. It was the apple of his eye.
As President Reagan put it, and I quote, if you are threatened, we are threatened. If you're not at peace, we cannot be at peace.
And they said, would you protect us? I said, no, I will not protect you from Russia.
Again and again at critical moments, we chose unity over disunion.
When people who love our country protest on January 6th in Washington, they become hostages.
Freedom over tyranny, hope over fear.
If you leave Florida, you end up getting shot, mugged, raped.
This is a pivotal moment for Europe, for the transatlantic community, and I might add for the world.
Did anyone ever see the lovely movie Silence of the Lambs? Did you see it? Did you ever hear of Hannibal Lecter? He was a lovely man.
Reagan knew it then, and we know it now. Our nations will continue to keep faith with what we pledged in years to come.
Yes, oh yes, and quickly, says President Trump. Yes, oh yes.
Well, there you have it. And by the way, have we seen Donald Trump in recent memory hold a press conference like the one President Biden did and get asked actual serious questions about nuanced foreign policy and discuss foreign policy like that? No, we haven't.
And by the way, you know, Biden, of course, he gaffed at the top. I'm sure a lot of the corporate media is going to focus on the VP Trump, VP Harris moment because that's the easy thing to talk about. But he then proceeded to have what I thought was actually one of the most impactful moments of his entire presidency. And, you know, honestly, the clips that we even played on the show don't even quite do it justice. I recommend that you go. We streamed the entire press conference, watch it on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel or watch it anywhere, quite frankly, because the answers he gave, especially about foreign policy to me, were intricate, were detailed, showed a deep command of the issues that Donald Trump could not even ever do a hundredth of that. Joe Biden has more foreign policy knowledge and experience in his pinky than Donald Trump has in his entire body. I thought he made an absolutely outstanding contrast to Trump, especially on the foreign policy issues, especially when he got passionate about gun violence, especially when he made the case as being the most pro-union president. And I was watching this going, why he should be doing this all the time. Like, not to be like, do something. But honestly, if I were Joe Biden, I would be doing 2 of these a week at this point. I'd be holding fireside chats, because what we saw there was truly like watching an elder statesman tell us what's going on, tell us the stakes of the battles we are facing across the world, tell us the stakes of the fight for our democracy here at home, tell us the stakes of the fight for our freedoms here at home, the fight for reproductive rights, the fight against gun violence. I mean, that was Joe Biden at his best. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I'm seeing a lot of praise for him online after that speech, with a lot of people going, "Oh, I didn't know he knew that much about foreign policy." Yes, that's his thing. That's his thing. And we can't let these media narratives continue to get in the way of who these people are. And you know what the media is going to do? They're going to amplify every little gaffe while they ignore every Donald Trump gaffe and treat it like it's a joke. I don't have the video with me this second, but we made a video pretty recently of Donald Trump getting the names wrong of people he knows, getting the names.
It's 3 minutes long.
It's 3 minutes long. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And all those gaffes got the tiniest coverage. But any sort of slip up that Biden makes right now is going to be amplified 100x. And that's probably lowballing it, quite frankly, by the media, who is going after there and just wants to be so incredibly vindictive. And you could see it in these people. You could see it in their tweets. You could see it in their smiles, quite frankly. You could see it in the photos that they post. I'm talking about this corporate media. You see they are like sharks in the water who smell blood, and they want to get their scalp. But this isn't a game. Like this is not a game. This is about American democracy. We have 2 candidates. We have a candidate who has a firm grasp on foreign policy, and then we have a candidate who wants to usher in fascism, who's openly courting authoritarian dictators, who wants to remove America from our place in the standing in the world. And if you want to talk about mental competence, you have a guy who's talking about batteries and sharks and electric vehicles and windmills causing cancer and Hannibal Lecter. And I could go on this list for the next hour and a half if I wanted to about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, they give all the grace in the world to. Donald Trump, let's talk about immunity, Supreme Court immunity. Donald Trump gets media immunity. Donald Trump, they let say whatever the heck he wants. And when he messes up, they treat it like it's a joke. And they do not give Biden a single ounce of grace. And I hope that that press conference at least sent a message to people that this guy is in it to win it, that this guy knows his stuff, that this guy is a leader, that this guy's age is not a issue, is not like a fatal issue, but that his age is actually an asset. With age comes wisdom. With age comes that experience of him understanding the geopolitical landscape that he laid out quite brilliantly in a quite detailed way. And I'm sick of it, and people need to step up. The media needs to step up and report about this on the facts, on the substance, and stop playing these petty games. Sorry, I'm fired up, but I have to say it. And I really appreciated that press conference. And my message to the Biden campaign, I will say, keep it going. Let Joe be Joe. It's something we've said on this show since day one, right? Don't try to hide him. Don't even worry about the gaffes. He's going to mess up names. By the way, Joe Biden has made those same types of gaffes his entire career. You find videos in 1980 of Joe Biden getting names wrong. That was like his thing. That was a big joke during the Obama administration. He'd get people's names wrong. He'd make gaffes. It's one of the things like he was known for, in addition to his foreign policy acumen. That's actually not a new thing. But let Joe be Joe. Get him out there, have some fireside chats with people, do it once a week, twice a week, do these press conferences. He can handle it. He can handle it. And the more people see him, I think the more folks will have confidence in him. And I believe that he has an excellent chance of winning this election, and that Donald Trump will once again be a loser this November. But it's going to take all of us.
B, you got me fired up, man. I want to run through a brick wall right now. Let me just say this. Look, solid presser, right? We all saw it with our own eyes. Perfectly fine. I want to say this, though, about corporate media, the journos, the pundits, the podcasters, but they have been vultures, to your point. Look, Biden might not be a great orator at this point in his career or even a good one, but let's not pretend that Donald Trump is much better. Oh, but Biden reads from a teleprompter. Honestly, so what? When did prepared remarks become some big moral failing?
So does Trump, but he still failed
by
at
the way,
that.
he was phenomenal answering questions from reporters. But here's where my frustrations kick in. You know, there's nothing Biden can do right now to appease the corporate media. Corporate media, Brett, will either A, ignore the performance altogether if he does a decent job. God forbid he does a great job like he did tonight. They'll ignore it. Or B, they'll pounce on him for any miscue or mumble that he makes. You know, it's just simply a lose-lose for him at this point because the rules of the game are imbalanced. Corporate media is leading with a narrative. Joe Biden is too old. And then cherry-picking his public engagements to confirm their bias. It's gross. But
That's
A
why
plus job from Biden tonight.
And that's why I think Biden at this point has to rewrite the rules. He needs to take this into his own hands and not follow the lead of these journalists who want to push these narratives. And we were the first to acknowledge here that debate night was a disaster. That debate night was terrible. But I'll tell you this. If this was the Joe Biden we saw at that debate, there would not be a lot of this chattering, right? And there are so many people out there who loved Joe Biden the second before he stepped on that stage. And then suddenly, after they went into this panic death spiral, this incredibly unhelpful panic death spiral. And despite event after event after event, 20 plus events, doing stages, being on stage at NATO, giving that speech that we played to you before, going to the swing states, shaking the hands of voters, it will never be enough. And President Biden at his press conference tonight did acknowledge that at one point. He goes, no matter what I do, it's not going to be enough for you. If I took a neurological test today, which by the way, I took many neurological tests, and I'm fine. If I took a neurological test today, you'd say, oh, well, it wasn't the proper test. I need this test. I need that test. Like, you are holding me to different standards. And I want to show you this picture that I saw also of the journal. This is posted by one of these journalists waiting to get into this event, just to show you how they frame it. Because this to me is the epitome of kind of vultures right here. You look at this photo right here, waiting for the quote, make or break press conference. And the photos are all these journalists smiling, just like waiting as if this is their moment. And you just see the glee on people's faces that they want to take this guy down. They all want to have them be the person who writes the story. I took down this president of the United States. And I think that is absolutely disgraceful. Let's follow the facts. Let's follow the data. Let's follow the objective comments that President Biden is making. Let's compare those with the policies, the things that Donald Trump is saying, and make those stakes clear to the American people. Enough of the games. Like, I'm frankly sick of it.
Look, when the debate happened, we reported on it accurately, clear-eyed, what went down. The next day we reported on it. The day after, we talked about it. But after a while, it's like, okay, I get it. Where on the spectrum of news does that belong when you're making editorial decisions? And for me, and I think for the Meidas Mighty, the focus is, yeah, it was a bad debate. Okay, it's a great presidency. The things he's done with the economy, the things he's done with foreign relations, his support of unions, bottom up, middle out, the way he's pushed back against trickle down. You know, you go through his protection of women's reproductive rights. You go through the list. President Biden's been there with the people every step of the way. And so you got to compare a data point with the broader picture of what's been going on for 3.5 years and what are the threats, what are the issues that are impacting Americans on a day-to-day basis, which is why, you know, we've devoted a lot of our attention to Project 2025, Donald Trump's threats to democracy, Donald Trump saying that he wants to be a dictator. I mean, when in American history have we had someone run on the platform that they want to be a dictator? Donald Trump making statements that praise January 6th insurrectionists and call them hostages and say he's going to release the hostages. I mean, that doesn't get any attention. And Donald Trump has all those cognitive moments as well that get no attention.
And here's what they'll do, Ben. They'll point to, like, you know, one article that they wrote about that. And they'll say, look, we covered it. Look, we covered it. what I said on the last show, Ben, and by the way, we missed you on the last show. It's good to have you back.
Missed you.
I gotta say. What I said on the last show was, to me, it's not about reporting it or not reporting it, right? The media, of course, should report on everything that's happening right now with the Biden administration. That's their job, for sure. It's the proportionality of the reporting is what I said on the last show. And it's when you have 200 plus articles written by one organization in the span of a week, and I think I'm lowballing it for some of these organizations, about one specific topic, and you are so clearly putting your finger on it, and you continue to make up stories, by the way. You release a story about a Parkinson's doctor visiting the White House that had nothing to do with Joe Biden. When Joe Biden was not even in the White House when this guy came. He was just, this guy was a neurological expert who saw everybody in the White House. You make these fake stories up, you put them out on your front pages, and then you come back a day later and you don't even offer as much as a correction sometimes. You just maybe add another line into the piece, and then you say, oh, all good, but I'm just doing journalism. And it feels like they are out for a specific outcome rather than just that they're reporting what happens. While they may do a story about Project 2025, you may see a segment, you may see a story, but not seeing equal coverage here of the issues. And I would say Joe Biden's age pales in comparison to the threat of a guy who literally wants to destroy American democracy, strip away the rights of women, strip away the freedoms of Americans, take away your Social Security, take away your Medicare, your health care, pales in comparison to all those issues. And it is not deserving of the weight that the media is giving it.
Look, let me show you what I think the attention should be on. This was from Donald Trump's speech in Miami from this week. And he spent a significant amount of time praising January 6th insurrectionists. And whenever he starts these events, by the way, he's replaced our national anthem, a different by the J6th Choir. He plays the J6th Choir anthem. These are some of the most violent insurrectionists, people who attacked police officers, attempted to kill police officers. That's who's a part of the choir. Just think about it. That's how he starts his event. Imagine the President Biden goes, before I'm giving this press conference, I would like us to please stand at attention while we listen to the Bin Laden 7. I mean, like we're going to let's listen to the insurrectionist song. All right, now let's take questions. Could you just imagine the moment? Could you imagine if during those questions President Biden was being asked, if he was like, let me explain to you what I want to do. I want to be he does the whisper sometimes, a dictator on day one. And my friend, Hannibal Lecter, like, could you imagine if that was going on? And the outrage that would be shown to him. This was Donald Trump from his speech in Miami saying that the January 6th insurrectionists are hostages. He says that his buddies at the Supreme Court are helping to free them. Watch what he says.
But when people who love our country protest on January 6th in Washington, they become hostages, unfairly imprisoned for long periods of time. But fortunately, the Supreme Court has just ruled, and they should be out soon. We are a third world nation.
So in the background, that's QAnon music too. So that's kind of music that's played by QAnon. He gets up there, he attacks America. He says America's a horrible place. He praises the insurrectionists. He praises the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court never actually ruled that the insurrectionists will be let go. They said that the certain obstruction charge couldn't be used, but the other charges can. You can't go and just attack and try to kill police officers. And the people who are imprisoned have either been found guilty by juries, they've pled guilty, or they're some of the most violent of the violent January 6th criminals. Like, you don't even hear anybody talking about that line other than on the MeidasTouch network and a handful of other independent media networks. So the question becomes is, where do you direct your attention, your editorial lens, your rage, how you're able to focus on what is going to actually impact audiences, and those are the decisions that we make. Brett, you talk about the immunity that's given by the media to Donald Trump. When they compare President Biden's economic numbers to Donald Trump, they'll usually also say President Biden still has better economic numbers if you take out the last year of Donald Trump, and Biden still does better, right? Like, you'll hear that occasionally in passing. But why are we even taking out the last year? You get a mulligan for a full year as the president when you mishandle a crisis. We don't consider that year doesn't get considered on you. Just think about that. It was like, look, for Carter, we can just totally, forget about.
Frankly, it reminds me of when they covered for Bush and said he was great on foreign policy and great with national security, other than 9/11. But he was great, right? It's like you can't ignore the big thing. You can't ignore the big thing. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, and by the way, though, for 9/11, I mean the country came together and unified. And you heard today one of the things President Biden, I think, in a very nuanced way, was being very critical of the war cabinet of Israel. And he said, "Look, I warned them not to make the mistake that America made." Think about the maturity of that response. Like, you've got Donald Trump, Hannibal Lecter, my friend Hannibal Lecter, blah, 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 blah. Right? President Biden at his press conference is saying in a very diligent way, I spoke to the war cabinet. They're a very right-wing conservative war cabinet. And I tried to explain to them from a historical perspective, the mistakes that America made. How after 9/11, our focus was not on the Taliban where it should have been. And then it was directed in all these other areas. We got into a quagmire, and it caused massive, massive amounts of damage to us and abroad. Don't make that mistake. And he's like, I wish they would have listened more to that advice, because we're seeing some of the problems there. But he's reflecting on a mistake he made. He's calling in no uncertain terms for a ceasefire, and he's reflecting on very nuanced conversations rooted in historical experience. And could you imagine? I mean, this do we have the clip of Donald Trump talking about water spots? Think about Biden, what I just told you he said, and then think about what Donald Trump was talking about at his event. Here, play this clip.
It's only 103 degrees out here. So, they built all these, they call them, sir, we have many water spots. I said, what about one for me? Do I have one? I don't have one, Marco. They gave water spots. Everybody has, they call it a water spot. Where water comes out, you get. They don't have anything for me. I'm being drenched up here.
I mean, what is that? And that doesn't get talked about ever. This is an individual who says he wants to be a dictator. He was found liable for sexual assault. I mean, can we talk about that? Found liable for sexual assault by a jury. He's on tape bragging about sexually assaulting women. He's on tape talking about how during his beauty pageants, he would show up and without consent inspect naked girls at his beauty pageant. Talks about how he wants to have sex with an 18-year-old who, because of her mental illness, he thought she'd be better in bed, and joking and laughing about that. He's on tape talking about the thing he thinks he has in common with his daughter Ivanka is sex. He says he wants to be a dictator. He's a convicted felon. He led an insurrection before our eyes. We observed it. He's someone who says he'd consider pardoning the Proud Boys. He invited the Proud Boy leader to the White House in December for a tour, and was in the kind of residence area where they were Enrique Tarrio was taking photos of himself there. He praises Vladimir. What are we even talking about? And honestly, I think at the first debate that President Biden had, for someone who's been a statesperson or a statesman his entire life, right, dealing in democracy, you're sharing a stage with someone found liable for sexual assault, what the judge says is the same thing as rape. A convicted felon standing right there, who lies about everything, who's just you can't even understand what the guy's even saying, like a total maniac. And I think Biden's also just what in the world is going on? By the way, that's how independent voters, by and large, have been looking at the debate and the post-debate. Trump's a maniac. Like this is a lunatic. What are we even talking about here? Anyway, want to talk more about that. We've got a lot to discuss on this episode. Let's take our first quick break. I want to remind everybody as well about our Patreon, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I know that corporate media has been letting us all down lately. Look, they're funded by shareholders and billion-dollar investors and billionaires and decamillionaires. So we aren't. We're funded by the emojis that you see, Patreon, and our pro-democracy sponsors. So one of the ways you can help is by going to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, becoming a member, or buying the emojis through that $ in the YouTube link and supporting our pro-democracy sponsors. Let's hear from them. We'll be right back.
Support for today's episode comes from Hexclad. Revolutionize your cooking with Hexclad cookware, where innovation meets culinary excellence. Hexclad simplifies your kitchen time while adding elegance to every meal. Hexclad has transformed the cooking industry with their all-in-one hybrid pan. You get the convenience of non-stick, the versatility of cast iron, and the durability to last a lifetime. Yes, Hexclad cookware comes with a lifetime warranty. Whether you're grilling or hosting a dinner party, Hexclad delivers unbeatable performance and style. Even Gordon Ramsay, the ultimate critic, trusts Hexclad pots and pans in his home and Michelin star restaurants. If it's good enough for Gordon, I know that you'll love it too. For a limited time, Hexclad is offering our listeners 10% off. Just go to hexclad.com/Meidas. Support our show. Check them out at hexclad.com/MEIDAS. Now, honestly, I was using all sorts of pots and pans before I got my Hexclad, and having food stick to those pots and pans and ruin the dish that I was working on, or even just being able to throw them in the dishwasher, was so incredibly frustrating. My Hexclad pots and pans have really made my life so much easier and have upped my cooking game, whether I'm cooking steaks, fish, eggs, veggies, or making pasta, anything. I hosted a dinner party just the other night and got a bunch of compliments from my friends who are pretty tough critics, I might add. Hexclad's hybrid technology offers the benefits of stainless steel, cast iron, and nonstick in one pan. They're metal utensil safe, dishwasher safe, and oven safe up to 500 degrees, and they're induction ready with stay cool handles. Hexclad's elegant design and durable construction make it the perfect choice for entertaining all summer long. Impress your guests with beautifully prepared dishes that look as good as they taste. For a limited time only, our listeners get 10% off your order with our exclusive link. Just go to hexclad.com/Meidas. Support our show. Check them out. It's hexclad.com/MEIDAS. Bon appetit. Let's eat with Hexclad's revolutionary cookware. Elevate your cooking game to new heights with Hexclad.
Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of this video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume draws flavor to your mouth. Fume fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. You still have something to reach for. Fume is not a vape. There's no vapor, and you could use it anywhere. There's no nicotine. It's not addictive. The non-toxic flavors are a guilt-free alternative. Fume doesn't use any batteries, so you'll never need to charge it. The design is super sleek. It looks awesome, and you can truly feel the weighted high-quality design. One of the things about Fume is that it's made to fidget with, and it calms anxiety with magnets, snaps, and clicks. Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. Fume is also backed by doctors in the United States. My favorite Fume flavor is crisp mint. It is honestly delicious, and I couldn't recommend this more for anyone trying to quit their bad habit. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code MeidasTouch, MEIDAS, to get a free gift with your journey pack. So head to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com. Tryfume.com. Use code Meidas or scan the QR code on screen to get a free gift with your order today.
Let's go, y'all. Shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors. Links are in the description of the YouTube and the audio. Click them. Hexclad, Brett, I see you cooking. We were FaceTime the other night. Brett was cooking with his Hexclad. That was pretty sweet. And Fume is just excellent as well. If you're looking to quit a bad habit and start a good one, Fume's the way to go.
Let
Links
me
in the
tell you,
description.
not only do I crush it with the hexclad, but like when I have friends come over and they see the hexclad, they're like, "You got the hexclad!" Like,
Yeah, it's like
it's made me a pretty cool guy too. So
I bet you are a
I'm
pretty
just
cool
saying.
guy, like in general, though.
I want to give a huge shout out to before I turn it over to you, Ben, just to this Midas Mighty community. You know, I think this is really one of the greatest communities out there, truly fighting for our democracy. And I'm so just grateful for all your support every single day, for you watching the videos, sharing the videos, liking the videos, commenting on the videos. All that goes such a long way. Everyone in our Patreon, everyone who supports the sponsors, I'm so grateful for you that you see what is happening in the corporate media and you see that this is a far bigger than any sort of one election. This is far bigger than any sort of one thing. This is an existential thing, and we are taking on these huge, massively funded, billionaire funded forces, and we could only do it thanks to you. So a huge shout out.
And I want to give a special thanks to our mods. I know they work very hard, our mods, keeping the conversations here at a high level, intelligent, making sure if there's any trolls who are, look, everyone has the right to express their opinion. Just when it starts getting offensive and when people are being attacked personally, I know our mods are looking after that. And also, they're also promoting our pro-democracy sponsor. So thanks for them. By the way, Brett, what you were saying reminded me of like what's taking place right now, like in this, like the vaulted ivory tower world of corporate media, where for them, this is all kind of one big game, right? There's that convention in Sun Valley, Idaho right now that Allen and Company throws every year in Sun Valley, Idaho at this lavish 5-star hotel property, and the who's who of corporate media, they all show up at this event and they all talk about deregulation and how much money they could make and you know and where the it just looks straight out of the movie Succession. So this is Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav right there.
On CNN.
Of CNN. What did I say?
I was just saying that's the parent company that owns CNN.
Correct. Parent company of CNN, Warner Brothers Discovery. There he is right there. And just take a look at his response to this question as he arrives at this convention. Asked about the upcoming presidential election, Zaslav said it mattered less to him which party wins, as long as the next president was friendly to business. Quote, we just need an opportunity for deregulation so companies can consolidate and do what we need to do to be even better, he said. So for him, it's all about how can corporations get bigger and which party is going to help them make their corporations bigger. Now,
are you going to tell me, let me just say, are you going to tell me that that individual who stands to lose millions of dollars, if not more, due to corporate taxes or due to regulations to ensure that we have a free and fair media, are you going to tell me that that person who says that they don't care about our democracy, they simply care about deregulation and what's good for business, are you going to tell me that that individual has no preference in the election? Are you going to tell me that that individual who makes the orders for these cable news networks, that that individual does not want to put his finger in the scale to help him save millions and millions and millions of dollars? I'm sorry. I just
but
don't
here's
buy
the
it.
thing too. It's yes, Brett, I get your point, but it's to me the delusion of thinking that that's going to be the outcome. Like Donald Trump has bankrupted like every business he's touched. He's not a great businessman. He was on a TV show where he played one. He's bankrupted almost every company he's touched. Casino after casino, product after product, products you never even heard of, like Trump Mortgage, Trump Vodka, Trump Steak, and ones you've heard of like Trump University. Every company the guy's touched, he's failed at. Also, he's talked about basically criminally prosecuting media companies that don't provide favorable coverage to him. He's posted about that, how he's going to go after them. I'm going to go after you. So you could think that you're going to do well and prosper in that environment, but take a look at what Putin does to his people over there. It's easy for you to say that there in Sun Valley, Idaho, with that smirk and look like, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. You don't think he's going to come for you first and shut down everything that isn't like Fox, that isn't pure propaganda? He said that's what he's going to do. So what I'm saying, Brett, is, yeah, there's the delusion that this is going to be some better corporate environment where he'll pay less taxes. But there's not, as economist after economist, Nobel laureate after Nobel laureate said, under Trump's plan, it will be an absolute disaster across the board.
Even all those CEOs admitted it after they came out of that meeting with Trump that time. They said, this is going to be a disaster. This is going to completely destabilize the economy. If he does 1/10 of what he says he wants to do, Donald Trump, it will completely destroy the economy and send everything into chaos, and would actually completely offset all those tax cuts that they want. So you could either think long-term about this, or you could think in the short term and try to get that shot, right? That shot of, oh, I'm going to get my tax cuts, right? That might feel good for the short term. It's not going to feel good when you're forced to become a state-run media of the Trump administration. And by the way, we've seen what happens to these organizations when new leadership takes control. They change quite quickly, right? We saw that when CNN, I'm talking about CNN, we saw that when CNN got a new owner, almost overnight. The same journalists who we saw every single day all of a sudden changed. Just became very bizarre. Then that guy had such a disastrous run. He ran the thing into the ground and he was fired, and they had to pick up the pieces, and here they are now. But we've seen what happens. It happens quickly. It's not like what's going to happen? Is Trump going to make something state-run media? Are they really going to listen to him as a new boss? Really? Yes. Yeah, it absolutely will. It absolutely will. And we have to think of the ramifications of a Trump presidency, not just on our democracy here, not just on businesses here, our lives here, but globally. This guy is a walking, talking wrecking ball. And we know it because we saw it before. And he's promising the dumbest stuff now. Stuff that does not hold up to any scrutiny. If he did hold a press conference and he was asked about it, and he would just ramble through it and probably bring up Hannibal Lecter and sharks and stuff, and everybody would laugh and say that it's funny. But
that's why they have to play the mental. That's why they have to play the mental gymnastics of well, look at Trump's economy. If you only take the first 3 months of May of his first three presidencies, and then a month in June, if you look at those months, what is this, the entire Biden presidency, like, it's the mental gymnastics that they have to do to prove their points is quite disturbing. And it's just like, okay, if you genuinely do care about your paycheck and care about money and care about the economy, we have resumes. Like, we have examples of what this looks like overall with a Trump presidency versus a Biden presidency. And it's just like, the case is pretty dang clear.
I mean, and I just remember every day with Trump, when the stock market would have a good day, that was like front page news all of the time. Stock market booming, stock market this. Okay, the stock market, which is not a good metric, I think, of how the economy in general is doing for the rest of us. But nonetheless, that was one of the metrics that Trump was graded by. Under Biden, the stock market's like twice as high, like double what it was than under Donald Trump, under that metric. But I think it's important to listen to what President Biden says. He goes, look, people can be wealthy. Good for you, wealthy people. Like, great. Like, I'm the senator of Delaware, okay, which used to be a red state. There are more corporations in Delaware than any state. I'm pro-corporation. I'm not anti-corporation, but I'm anti-greed. At some point, when you're taking billions of dollars so that your CEOs can make 50 million, and all your execs make 40 million, 30 million, 20 million, and you're screwing over the average worker, that's what I'm not okay with. That's unfair. You are rigging the system for billionaires, and that is a problem. I'm not okay with tax cheats. I'm not okay with billionaires who are trying to cheat the system. But go ahead and be rich. Let's just have a fair system that's bottom up, middle out, not trickling it down and saying, let's give extra benefits and special benefits to the billionaires who are already billionaires. It's like, remember this hearing this week? This is what kind of James Comer said. And this is something that the MAGA Republicans talk about all the time, and they'll say, look, James Comer wanted to be clear how much he eats chicken McNuggets at McDonald's. I eat chicken McNuggets all of the time. And look, the chicken McNuggets are more expensive now. Chicken McNuggets far more expensive now, and it's Biden's fault. Like, just take a look at what James Comer said. Then I want to talk about this here. Play this clip.
Chairman, forgive me. Do you know what the cost of 10-piece chicken McNuggets is today?
Well, I buy a lot of chicken nugget meals.
It's under $5. It's $4.49 at the closest one you can get here. And Impossible Nuggets are even less.
So there's no inflation at McDonald's, Mr. Ashkin. I would say I spend more money at McDonald's than any person in Congress, and I'll stand by that. I'll testify under oath.
Well,
my 3 kids.
We certainly don't mean to bankrupt you with our environmental regulations when you go to McDonald's.
But
what do you think the gross profit was? Not revenue. Gross profit for McDonald's in the past year ending March of 2024. Jordy, you have any guesses?
Oh, I'm not playing this math game. You just tell me the answer.
Okay. $14 billion.
That's what I would have said, and you didn't even ask me.
$14 billion in gross profit. You know what the CEO of McDonald's makes? I'll answer. $20 million or so. You know what the CFO makes? Around $10 million. And then the other top executives around $8.5 to $10 million. Year over year, McDonald's gross profit, we're not talking about revenue, we're talking about profit, went up 9% from 2023 to 2024. So when we're having these discussions about the price of chicken McNuggets, for example, and you can apply this to eggs, you can apply this to all of these other products. One of the main issues that has to be addressed is corporate greed. You know how you address corporate greed and fraud and collusion in the market and antitrust violations? Through common sense regulations. You know who carries out regulations? Agencies. You know who's destroying agencies to do their job? Republicans. The Supreme Court. What do you think the Supreme Court's ruling was to take away the power of agencies to do their jobs on things like antitrust and securities fraud and environmental violations and things like that, so that these corporations can have massive, massive profits. And then what they will do is then blame it on Biden or blame it on the Democrats or blame it on anti-competitive whatever, when in reality, a lot of it is driven by corporate greed. And that's something President Biden's actually been trying to address. But systematically, the MAGA Republicans have been tearing down the ability for common sense regulations in these areas. And that's why when Americans realize these facts, when this data is out there, they think differently because they're like, oh, you're trying to screw me. When you can remove the circus aspect of politics and make it about not politics, about humanity and about what's really happening, people go, oh, and they wake up. That's why the MAGA Republicans are terrified about Project 2025. Even though they're implementing it, they're terrified about people knowing about what Project 2025 is, not terrified about the policy itself. They want to implement the policy.
They got caught. Once
people know about it, they know, holy crap. Is this the first question I often get from people when they look it up? And you can see right now, the number one issue Americans are focused on right now is not Biden's age. It's Project 2025 is what people are looking up over and over again. And often the first question I get asked, and Brett and Jordy, I wonder what you guys, is this real? Is this really the plan? And I say, yes, go and read it. You read their plan. They talk about it. They say this is a revolution that will be bloodless if the left lets it be. I mean, think about that. The Heritage Foundation, which wrote it, they're the main sponsor of the Republican National Convention. When you walk into the RNC, it says the Heritage Foundation welcomes you to the RNC. Trump's been seen with the writer, the main author of Project 2025, over and over again.
140 plus people from that Trump worked with in his administration work for Project 2025, including very high profile people like John McEntee, like Stephen Miller, who keeps denying that he's a part of it. And literally you're in the video, dude, about transitioning to Project 2025, about Trump's press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, who is also in the videos on the Heritage Foundation site. There are multiple videos of Donald Trump from a year or two ago being with the Heritage Foundation going, and you're working on a plan for us, right? That we're going to implement right when we get in there. You're working on a plan for us and we're going to implement it right when we get in there. There's such a track record of it. And they were hoping that people didn't read it. Like, I think they were hoping people didn't quite catch on. They like speaking to their bubbles. Like they go on Steve Bannon's show. They go on Fox. They like speaking to their bubbles. When things escape those bubbles, that's when they get upset about it. And people have been finding out. And the things in Project 2025 are so shocking, so stunning, that folks are starting to get worried about it. Americans are starting to get worried about it, and they're understanding the real stakes of this election and actually what Donald Trump and his acolytes want to do: to strip away LGBTQ rights, to imprison people for getting the abortion bill or getting abortions, to abolish the Department of Education, to take away your health care, to repeal all the progress that we made on climate change and give all these bailouts to big oil. Like, it's all in there, folks. It's all in there. So you could read it yourself. They literally have a website where they have it. You could go through it page by page, and I think you'll be quite horrified. We posted a graphic on our social media that had a lot of the kind of high level beats of it the other day, which you could see on our Instagram account at MeidasTouch if you scroll through there. But this is real. This is horrifying, and it needs to be talked about with the same veracity, if not more, than Joe Biden's age, because this is something that deeply affects people's lives and potentially.
I would say, let me be very clear. I would say far more. I would say it shouldn't even be in the same.
Agreed. I am asking the media for the bare minimum.
Yes, absolutely, Brett. Brett, can you do me a favor? Can you pull up the vultures that were covering Biden's presser today? I bring that energy to covering Project 2025. Please, I beg of you, because don't do this, which you've done. Like, this is how Trump plays the media, Brett, when they run these fact checks. Like, the corporate media will point to those truths. I hate saying that. His social media post that you showed up before, of him denouncing it, saying that, oh, Trump has no idea. He doesn't stand behind it. Look, they're totally ignoring what, Ben, you said earlier, that the plan is developed by his people, promoted by him at their conventions, and then it's meant to implement his autocratic agenda. But he truthed about it, brothers. He truthed that he doesn't know about it. So the corporate media in 2024, they'll take a convicted felon at his word. But that's why we're here, the MeidasTouch Network, and that's why the Meidas Mighty.
But Jordy, here's what the press was worried about, though. They weren't asking President Biden today about Project 2025 when they went to the White House following a meeting between the new UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who, by the way, all the press said had no shot of winning the elections in the UK as well. They were proved completely wrong. The polls were proved completely wrong. And so he has his meeting with President Biden after the summit. And what does the press do? I've never seen any president treated so disrespectfully as this. The press, for like a minute straight, just starts shouting at President Biden after the press conference, not a press conference, it was just a meeting. They were taking pictures. Just start shouting at President Biden about the George Clooney op-ed. George Clooney, George Clooney, George Clooney, George Clooney. Like this is unhinged behavior. Here's the clip.
For coming in.
George Clooney, George Clooney, George. That's the craziest video.
Ocean's 11.
Honestly, that's psychotic behavior. Like, what is the media do? Sometimes I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. Like, are we the only ones who are looking at this, us in the Meidas Mighty community, and are going, this is unhinged? Why are they not focusing on the issues? It's such a failure of the media. And by the way, I know we have other people on this network as well, that have different opinions than us, and that's okay. And by the way, I argue with them like this, the same way that I make my case to you here. And I firmly disagree with those opinions. That sort of behavior that I see right there from the press is exactly the problem. Stop treating this like it's a game. Let's get down to the substance. Let's get down to the stakes and the facts.
Let me show you a simple equation with photographs. Photograph 1, let me show you the vultures, the press that was out there, the hyenas who were ready to go, who thinks this whole thing is a joke. This is the photo of them waiting to get in, saying, here it comes, here it comes. So then they're out there. Number 1. Now, who are they employed by? Their parent company, with the big bosses who are out there in Sun Valley, Idaho partying. David Zaslav kind of right there. So 1 + 1.
Even this guy's jacket bothers me, quite frankly.
Well,
his outfit. I feel like Kendrick. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk, the way that you dress.
1 + 1 = 2. Now, here is the Trump or death flag right here that goes up at all of these Trump events. So when you have all of that and it's all a game and it's all a joke to you, this is the outcome of that. This is the equation right here, where the leader of the Republican Party is giving speeches about Hannibal Lecter and praising insurrectionists and praising Putin while they sell convicted felon merch, while they fly Trump or death flags in place of the American flag, and while they sell Hawk Tua 24 spit on that thing
I didn't even know
on shirts. And what you end up getting, and I like that the DeSantis supporters are like, how did this happen? That rather than like someone like DeSantis speaking at the convention, he's replaced by Amber Rose. Like they're like the DeSantis supporters like, how did we get her instead of him? I don't know, because you supported a cult leader in Donald Trump that took over the party and you allowed that to happen. You know, that's how. And I'm not making any excuses for the other guy there, but I'm just saying that the party is now the party of the Amber Roses and people selling Haktua 2024 shirts. And by the way, this is what Donald Trump posted moments ago as well. New sneakers that he's selling, new shoes. This is totally normal behavior. Coming soon, he says. And as our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, writes, you know, the grift never ends. Is the Republican nominee for president, shoe and Bible salesman, club champion coming soon. We have the photo of the shoes that he's selling. We'll pull it up after the ad break. Let's take our last break, and when we get back, I want to talk about the economy. I want to talk about where we go from here moving forward. Let's take our last quick break of the show. So here's a pretty cool and positive story I want to share. So I got my uncle MD hearing aids, and I saw him recently over the past weekend, and he told me how much better his hearing has been. This podcast is sponsored by MD Hearing. MD Hearing is an FDA-registered, rechargeable hearing aid that costs a fraction of what typical hearing aids cost. MD Hearing's Neo model costs over 90% less than clinical hearing aids. The Neo fits inside your ear, so no one will even know it's there. Plus, MD Hearing just launched the Neo XS, MD Hearing's smallest hearing aid ever. MD Hearing recently cut their price in half. That means you can get high quality, rechargeable digital hearing aids for only $297 a pair. MD Hearing was founded by an ENT surgeon who saw how many of his patients needed hearing aids but couldn't afford them. He made it his mission to develop a quality hearing aid that anyone could afford. I have been raving to everyone about MD hearing aids for a while now. MD Hearing is just as good as premium quality hearing aids. $297 for a pair of hearing aids this good is crazy. I can't believe I was overpaying so much for hearing aids, and I can't believe how much my uncle loves MD hearing aids. Edward S. calls MD Hearing, quote, the best hearing aid I have used at any price. It's like exactly what my uncle said. MD Hearing has sold over 1.5 million hearing aids, and they offer a 45-day risk-free trial with a 100% money-back guarantee, so you can buy with confidence. Get the hearing you deserve with MD Hearing. Go to shopmdhearing.com and use promo code Meidas, MEIDAS, to get their new $297 when you buy a pair offer. Plus, they are adding a free extra charging case, a $100 value just for our listeners of the show. That's shopmdhearing.com. Use our promo code Meidas and get their new $297 when you buy a pair offer. Pretty good.
Living in a city, I recently learned that indoor air pollution can be up to 5 times higher than outside. This was a real eye-opener for me. Then I discovered NeoPX, a 100% nature-based, bioengineered air purifier designed by PhD scientists. As someone who prioritizes health through diet and exercise, I realized that I needed to care about the air that I breathe daily too. NeoPX tackles harmful air pollutants called VOCs, which come from everyday items like furniture and cleaning products. The secret lies in pollutant-eating bacteria powered by Power Drops. Just mix the formula with water and add it to your plant monthly to activate air purification. NeoPX purifies the air as effectively as 30 regular houseplants. Plus, it's eco-friendly, requiring no electricity, and coming with a self-watering, biodegradable planter. The benefits are noticeable. 87% of customers feel a difference within a week. NeoPX lets you fight air pollution with nature. When you purchase NeoPX, you get 6 Power Drop pouches, and to celebrate the launch, NeoPlants is offering a 7th pouch free. That's an extra month of pure air. Go to neoplants.com/Meidas and the discount will be applied automatically at checkout. Shipping is available within the US with worldwide shipping coming soon. Breathe better, live better with NeoPX.
Let's go, y'all. Shout out Neoplants, man, and MD Hearing. Our uncle just raves about them all the time. So huge fans of them both. And like I said the last time with Neoplants, I'm team asthma over here. Y'all know that, and it's definitely helped me, sort of clear my airways up a bit. So that's me personally. It's really helped me out. So definitely check it out. The links are in the description of YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes, let them know we sent you. They're great, phenomenal.
We're getting some feedback and responses now from people and undecided voters who were watching President Biden's press conference. Let me show you a focus group and their response. This was just came out moments ago. Let's play it.
The two of you weren't decided. My question for you, you weren't decided before this happened if you should stay in the race. How do you feel now after watching this news conference?
Relieved, and I think he should stay in.
So your opinion has changed from not sure to he should stay in?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how about you? How do you feel? You weren't sure. How do you feel now?
Same. I think he's the logical choice.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's where the people really were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I certainly understand. So we talked about candidly after the first debate. Clear-eyed, I get that there's a concern. I understood it. But every single day, the corporate media has been focused on this narrative tsunami, and they've given this all the attention. They've cherry-picked from here and there to build this up. And I just think they're so out of touch with where we, the people, are. You see, where we, the people, are focused on issues that affect our lives and our families and future generations and our neighborhoods and our communities. You know, we, the people, like to spend the weekends with our family, maybe having a catch, doing a hobby, going to a movie, maybe occasionally going out to a restaurant.
Not like this.
Spending time with family. Yeah, we don't really want to go out and be selling hot to us, spit on that thing, 2024 shirts or fly Trump. Like for us, we're not in Sun Valley, Idaho. Okay. You know, we're not out there. You know, we the people have issues that we got to deal with every single day. And what we recognize, I think this is part of the growth of the MeidasTouch community, is we recognize, you know, is President Biden the flashiest guy out there? No. Is he that flashy at all? No. But we, the people, we want normalcy. We don't want to wake up with all caps posts deranged, psycho, cuckoo person is a maniac and I'm going to whine in the morning. We don't want that. We don't want that. We just want someone who goes through the motions, who gets things done, and perhaps George Clooney in his $80 million Lake Como place, maybe he views, this as some Hollywood script and it's going to be excitement at the convention. And
Oh my God,
what's
some of
going to
these
happen?
ideas are just
Oh, it's so
bonkers.
exciting. And no, look, I know George Clooney. The outcome probably doesn't matter for you in your mansion in Lake Como. Sure, it's probably not going to change your life, okay? But for we the people out there, this is life or death stuff right here. We understand what Project 2025 is. We understand the implications of overturning Roe v. Wade. We understand the implications of Donald Trump saying he wants to be a dictator on day one. We understand the implications of these Supreme Court justices he appointed, saying that he would be allowed to order SEAL Team 6 or the military to kill his political opponents. And because that's an official act or a core constitutional function, that he would be permitted to do so. We've seen the Supreme Court be okay with the rapid proliferation of bump stocks used in mass shootings. We've seen the Supreme Court basically say, you know what? There shouldn't be any gun regulations at all. We're just going to read out of the Second Amendment anything about regulation and well-regulated militia, and we're going to apply a historical test and just say, if we don't find any historical prohibitions on it, because guess what? These military weapons weren't around then when the Constitution was being drafted. They weren't aware of these military-style weapons. They didn't have them. So you want to apply your historical test while kids are getting killed? Like, what are you doing? We recognize the issues of climate change. We understand climate change is real. It's not a joke. It's not a freaking joke to we the people when Donald Trump goes up there and goes, there'll be more beachfront property for me. No, these are serious issues for we the people, and that these things matter. And so what we talk about here on the MeidasTouch Network, what people are focused on here, are issues that affect the economy. What we're focused on here, what we're judging President Biden by, the ratings that we care about, is inflation falling? Yes. Is crime falling? Yes. Are border crossings falling despite Trump's effort to sabotage it? Just think about that. Trump said, I am screwing up a bipartisan immigration deal because I want the American people to suffer, and I'm going to run a race on your suffering. And then he orders MAGA Mike Johnson to kill a bipartisan deal whose lead negotiator is the Republican senator from Oklahoma. Like the most conservative person, actual conservative in the Senate who negotiated this thing because you want we the people to suffer so you could run on our suffering? Is climate emissions falling? Is inequality falling? Energy production is growing. I know MAGA Republicans, everything for them is a nursery rhyme, right? And I know the media may like the flesh. Drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. Okay, there's more drilling right now while we are also paying attention to climate change than ever in the history of our nation and any nation. President Biden broke OPEC. OPEC was trying to jack up the prices to over $100 per barrel of oil. And President Biden said, you know what? No, screw you. We're going to strategically use our strategic reserves. We're going to pump our barrels into the market. We're going to lower the prices. We're going to sell high, buy low, and replenish, which is exactly what he did. And OPEC had to drop their prices. Are real wages growing? Not just the stock market, which is up double right now than it was under Donald. Are real wages growing? Yes. Are jobs growing? Yes. Are unions growing? Yes. These are the issues that we, the people, are talking about. These are the pocketbook, kitchen sink, kitchen table issue, whatever you want to call them, that we're focused on. And we see Donald Trump up there, Hannibal Lecter, water spots. And does President Biden have a stutter? Yes. Is President Biden 81 years old? Yes. Newsflash, he's 81. But cut the crap about being mean and nasty and mean-spirited about people who are older. When has ageism become an acceptable thing in our country? What the hell is that? Just mocking people who are older because he walks slower, he looks older. How dare you mock someone? That's wisdom. We just mock elderly people. Oh, look at him walking like he doesn't walk the same. I guess we're going to throw away all that good stuff for a fascist wannabe dictator who praises Vladimir Putin, who's basically the same age. Like, what are we even talking about here? So, when I often get asked the question like, well, Ben, what I notice is that the MeidasTouch network is not really focused on where a lot of even some other like left-leaning networks are focused on, other things. And you've pretty much stayed the course and focused on the same things. I go, yeah, because that's what matters to the American people. We have a core set of values and principles here at the MeidasTouch Network. And that's what matters. That doesn't even have a political affiliation. Let's be decent human beings. Let's not mock the disabled. Trump mocks the disabled. You want to elect someone to the highest office who mocks disabled people? Who says that military veterans are suckers and losers? You want to put that person in the presidency? What are you talking about? Who says he wants to be a dictator on day one? Who's a convicted felon? Who's been found liable for sexual assault? The media just go, oh yeah, the judge says that you were found liable for rape. The jury found you liable for sexual assault. You're all over the Epstein files. You're in depositions. You're in his call logs. You're on his plane logs. He went on your plane. You hosted yacht parties with like 14-year-old girls. Like all the stuff's undisputed. You're on camera. You're on audio tape talking about sexually assaulting them, bragging about it. But you know what? That's Trump being Trump. That's Trump being Trump? Like, what in the world are you even talking about? That is a vile, disgusting human being who should be nowhere near the proximity to anything. This is not someone who should run a company, big, small, medium, a nonprofit. If someone walked into my room and started bragging about sexually assaulting people, I'd call the police in a second. Get the hell out of it. Push them away. Get out of here. And the Republican Party's like, yeah, give that guy the nuclear. What are we talking about here, America? So you want to know why I'm focused on those issues and not a freaking debate from 2 weeks ago? You want to know why I get pissed and livid when I keep hearing from, even like Democrats and the Lake Como, George Clooney's of the world, when I see Biden enacting over the past 3.5 years the exact type of agenda you've always claimed that you wanted. He did it. And what he can bring us in the next 4 years could be actually so special and reverse the course of all the damage that Donald Trump's been done. And you're playing these games that's life and death with the Midas Mighty, with people out there. And look, I'm channeling your rage out there because I feel it too. Don't play games with our lives. Don't play games with the lives of our kids and our grandkids and our family and our neighbors. You know what? Stop the bullshit. Just stop it. Grow up, media. Enough with the smiling. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Enough with that crap. Grow up. Become an adult. Appreciate the fact that our democracy is not something that's guaranteed. Appreciate the fact that you could even be a reporter because of the fundamentals of our Constitution that allows for you to go and do the exact things that Project 2025 and Donald Trump wants to take away from you. He's threatening you, and you think it's a game? He's threatening your life too on most of his posts. So wake up, grow up, support our democracy.
That was great. I agree 100 billion%. And here's the great thing also, everybody. President Biden has an incredibly accomplished vice president. And I said this on the last show, that my one silver, I have two silver linings of this disgusting saga that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. One, they weren't paying any attention to Joe Biden before in the media. They wouldn't play any clips from his rallies. They wouldn't play any clips from anything he did. They wouldn't speak about anything he did. At least they're talking about him now. It might not be good press. At least they're talking about him now. That's my number one. Number two, at least for the first time in this entire presidency, as she has went around through the states, across the country, achieved a ton, people are now finally starting to put some respect on Vice President Kamala Harris's name after years of completely disregarding her. Years of disregarding, acting like she doesn't exist. The media acted like she didn't exist. People making fun of her online. I'm disgraceful. But finally, over these past few weeks, people started seeing in her what President Biden saw in her. Seeing a leader, seeing somebody who's out there to defend democracy, seeing someone out there who is a prosecutor, someone who could prosecute this case against Donald Trump, against his criminality, against his destruction to women's freedoms. And seeing her out there hitting the swing states, to me, it shows you that you got a pretty damn good team when you combine President Biden and Vice President Harris. And I'll play this one clip from her. She was in, I believe this is from South Carolina, Vice President Harris talking about Donald Trump and how he bows to dictators. And you'll see why I think that this is such a solid team, the two of them together.
We simply know we cannot count on Donald Trump to help keep America and Americans safe, not here at home and not on the world stage. And yes, I am also talking then about national security. This week, our president, Joe Biden, is hosting more than 30 global leaders in Washington, D.C. for the NATO summit. Now, NATO is the greatest military alliance the world has ever known. And thanks to our president, Joe Biden, if there is one single person who deserves credit in the world for strengthening NATO, making it stronger, making it more united and more effective, that is Joe Biden. That is Joe Biden. And having made it more effective, then together with our allies around the globe, we are standing up to the dictator Putin. All to ensure America is strong and Americans are safe. On the other hand, do watch, because it's not new. On the other hand, watch as Donald Trump has embraced Putin. Watch that. It's not just happening today. It's been happening. As Trump, threatened to abandon NATO and encouraged Putin to invade our allies. He even said Russia can, and I'm going to quote him now, and forgive the use of the word, but he said, quote, Russia can, quote, do whatever the hell they want. And he wants to be the President of the United States? And understand, as Trump bows down to dictators, he makes America weak. And that is disqualifying for someone who wants to be Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. That is disqualifying.
You got an experienced president of the United States with a firm grasp on foreign policy who came out a winner in this press conference. And I have to admit, I was wrong about this press conference today because I assumed going into it that it was a lose-lose for Biden because the media would simply go and pick up any sort of gaffe. And they did that. But President Biden's performance outweighed their efforts to make that gaffe into something bigger than it was. And then you have a highly capable, qualified, passionate vice president. To me, you've got a dream team and the smartest people around them. And I'm just stunned for a second, going back to that clip that we showed at the top of the segment of those viewers from that CNN focus group that they had after the press conference, how level-headed those voters were. Those voters more level-headed than members of Congress, more level-headed than these pundits who are shouting that everything is on fire every day. And I think we've shown time and time again, and I know we've had to get fired up like this. This isn't our first time. This might be the most extreme that the media has gone in this direction, but I know we felt the same way before a lot of these special elections in 2023. I know we felt the same way before the midterms when the media was shouting, it's all over for the Democrats. It's all over. It's going to be a massive red wave, and there's nothing that anybody could do about it. We're looking at returns. We're looking at what people are saying. We're looking at what people are saying about Trump, about these Republican candidates. And we see independents being like, I can't associate with these people. And we saw this all throughout the primaries. All throughout the primaries, hordes of voters saying, I do not support Donald Trump. Independent voters saying there is no way that I could support Donald Trump. And all that hard data that we have received from those primaries, from the midterms, all of that has all pointed in one direction. It has not even been ambiguous, the direction it goes in. And I believe that the average voter is actually smarter than the media gives them credit for. I do. I think that the media often sits from their ivory towers, and they go, this is what the people think, or this is what the people should think, or the people are going to think this, or they're going to vote this way. But then you talk to the people like you did in that press conference, and they go, oh, yeah, it wasn't great, but the other night, but I'm with him now. Trump is far too dangerous. So what are we doing here? Yeah. What are we doing here, people? Like, I sort of keep asking myself every day, what the hell are we doing here? What is going on? But that's why we need you, honestly. That's why this community is so important, because on digital, at least, this community reaches far more people than any of these networks out there. They may have their cable channels with their declining ratings, and they may have got a shot in the arm with their ratings over this as everyone tunes into panic. But we reach more people than them. And so I'm going to call on you, the Meidas Mighty, to do everything in your power to continue to spread these messages and to continue to go to bat for democracy and not to fall in these media traps. Share these videos. Share information about Project 2025. Speak to your friends. Speak to your family. Let them know the stakes. Let them know how it would affect you personally. The best messenger for any issue is not for it to even come from one of us or to come from a pundit on TV. It's if it comes from you. You are the most powerful person in the people's lives around you. And don't forget your power. And don't forget that exponential power. You tell a friend about Project 2025. Next thing you know, they're at a dinner party. They're going, hey, my friend told me about this Project 2025 thing. Spreads like wildfire. People start to be asked questions. That's why we see those Google searches about Project 2025 surging far beyond searches for President Biden's age. What the hell are we doing, people? We're in this together. This is about our democracy. It's about our country. It's about the world. Let's all step up like together. I'm calling on all of us right now. It's a call to action for all of us. Let's step up, people. Jordy, I know you wanted to say something.
No, I just wanted to say, and those voters, Brett, in that CNN piece, they're more informed than these Hollywood elites. I can't not take a shot at Clooney because it really pissed me off. So like when you look at those elites sort of pile on this week, like it just really reaffirmed my initial sentiment about the entire saga. Because time and time again, and I don't say this, because it's a buzzword or I'm pandering to anyone, but it's like these privileged, rich white guys from their mansions who are the ones casting the stones, trying to tell the electorate that they know what's best for them. It's Clooney's, the Reiners, Stephen King's, like, well, I'm sure the Democratic Party has enjoyed those donations. Like, it doesn't mean that the ultra rich Hollywood types know better than the will of the people. And like when you look at the Clooney op-ed, for example, like not once in there was there an actual plan. Compare that to the statements from the Whitmers or Westmore or Newsom's or Shapiro, VP Harris, who are actually on the ground talking to voters, not talking at voters. Now, as someone who knows the stakes of the election, like I'm going to take the plan of seasoned professionals over someone behind a keyboard in a penthouse just because they have a couple bucks to throw around.
I've talked to people, if I get in an Uber, and occasionally something will come up about like, what do you do? Or we're just talking about things, or if I'm out at a place, if the topic of politics comes up, I'll ask people, so what do you think about what's going on right now? And I've had people say, like, after post debate, I've had people say, so what did you think about that night? The debate, what were your thoughts on it? And a lot of them would be like, oh, yeah, no, that really wasn't good. I had to turn off the TV in 10 minutes. It's scared. I get it. I totally understand it. Then I say, so what do you think you're going to do though for the election now? And what have you seen since? And they say, oh, well, he's looked great since. Okay, that's interesting. So what are you going to do though? Like putting that all together, like you were concerned that one night, right? Like, and it was bad. Don't get me wrong, it was rough. And they go, oh, I'm still voting for him. 100% rate. 100% rate. Because I think voters are smarter than these pundits, than those people who you're talking about, Jordy. Give them credit for. You don't run away from a battle.
I want to make a correction there. I said Lake Como. I said he lives in France. He lives in Italy. So
oh wow! The media is going to be all over that one, Ben.
We should do corrections at the end of our episodes, because I have another correction for you, Ben. I have another one. You called Succession a movie. It's a TV series.
See, this is the kind of things, Ben. The corporate media is going to run segments about your mental acuity.
Clip the 10 seconds. Ben calls Succession a movie.
There are going to be calls to pull Ben off the air. This is how it all starts, folks.
For the good of the country, Ben must resign his mic.
We've been going for a while, and I do want to thank the Meidas Mighty, and I want to remind everybody other ways that you could support this network, because we really are going up against these incredibly powerful, well-funded forces. So I'll say, if you like our work here at the MeidasTouch Network, number one, share our videos. Watch our videos, share our videos, comment on our videos, send them to friends, subscribe to the audio feed of the MeidasTouch Podcast. It's easy. You just hit the add button. It's free. You can leave a 5-star review. That goes a long way. All that is completely free. If you're able to, and no pressure at all, consider either right now in this chat, you could contribute to the MeidasTouch Network. Probably not the best business model when we're going against billionaires funding, but you can contribute a couple bucks at a time. You get access to some pretty cool emojis, if I might say, in the chat. Helps us a ton.
Brett was like, should we take Meidas public? Should we go on this? No, I think we go with emojis. I think we go with the
emoji model. That's what we coined it, the emoji model. That's what
another option. Patreon. We have a bonus features on Patreon. Depending on the tier, you could become a honorary producer of the show. You get access to monthly Q&A sessions with us, where we speak with you live over Zoom, answer your questions, and we're going to be announcing another one of those soon within the next couple shows. So stay tuned for that. Another way, say you don't want to have a membership for anything, you don't want anything. We have a new way that you could support the network as well. You could go to growmeidas.com, growmeidas.com. With Grow Meidas, you could chip in anything from $1, a couple bucks. You could also make a recurring contribution. It's a big way to help. All of these help us continue to battle these billionaire forces, this corporate media, and we sincerely could not do this without you. And we are so grateful for your support. So check those out. And I want to give you my absolute 100% gratitude for all your support along this journey.
As one of our subs just said, let's all breathe in and out and deeply. We got this. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
The Meidas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.